So AI. AI is a thing that has become an ever-increasing part of many developers' lives. Most developers that I know are still primarily using their AI as a chatbot. They're using it to rubber duck ideas, to ideate, to architect, to think about and work through solutions to problems. Other developers I know are using it to try to one-shot entire functions to varying degrees of success. But regardless, it has found its way into our workplace and it is affecting our daily lives. But either way, the AI is changing very quickly and there are a lot of really interesting new developments there. And one of the interesting new-ish developments as of last year is MCP, or Model Context Protocol. And what the Model Context Protocol is a standardized way that helps your AI interact with the outside world in a safer, more consistent way, whether it be a connection to your database, your file system, or some API or tool that you are running. Now, not all MCPs are the same. The way that you set them up varies depending on what tool you are trying to get it connected with, and the ease of setup can also vary depending on your use case. But in many cases, the juice is worth the squeeze. And one of them that I would like to take a look at today is the Clojure MCP. And for me, the thing that makes the Clojure MCP particularly interesting is because it gives your AI the ability to connect to a Clojure REPL and use the REPL to help it develop changes and implement features inside of your code base. What I wanted to do was I wanted to create a repository that shows many different ways of connecting Clojure MCP to a Clojure code base, whether it be mounting it inside of a container, whether it be starting up an SSE proxy either outside or inside the container, or getting into a mounted container without any SSE proxy whatsoever, having it connect with different toolings too, whether it be Claude Desktop or Claude Code, Codex CLI, or even Copilot Chat. The end goal is to be able to provide this to you in the easiest and clearest way possible with as few commands as possible. If this sounds interesting to you, then please follow me where I will show you how you can get this set up yourself. So I'll see you there. The first step to following along is to get the repository. To do that, you go to Stoding Clojure MCP examples and you copy down the link to the repository. The next step is you go into the IDE of your choice and you do a git clone. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to make the repository the root directory and you're going to begin the bootstrapping process. After you're done cloning the repo and you have CD'd into it, the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to run the first Bootstrap script. What the first Bootstrap script is going to do is it's going to install Nix on your computer. Once that script is done, you're going to exit out of the terminal and open up a new one. And the next thing you're going to do is you're going to run the second Bootstrap script. And what this one's going to do is it's going to install devenv on your computer. Great. Now that devenv has been installed onto the computer, you are going to run devenv shell and you're going to build the devenv shell. Now, when you run this the first time, it is going to take maybe 7 minutes or so to get up and running. But once you do, you're going to be ready to go. Awesome. So you've ran devenv shell, you have built the shell, and now you are inside of it. You can see that at the top, we are inside of devenv, and from here, you can call any number of commands to set up the environment to be able to run the containers and run Claude Desktop in several different configurations. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to generate a bridge for the pattern where the proxy is running in the host machine. And the next thing that we're going to do is, because I'm running on Windows, I'm going to generate a Claude win file. So, and what this is going to do is it's going to generate the Claude Desktop MCP configuration JSON file It's going to go to the location where Claude Desktop is installed on your computer, depending on your OS. It's going to rename your current configuration with a timestamp and then replace your current configuration with the configuration that we've generated here. So after we've run bash and after we've generated the Claude Desktop file, the next thing that we can do is we can start up our containers. We can create the environments for Claude to connect with MCP. We're going to open up Claude Desktop and we're going to see how it looks. So let's go ahead and write start and get things up and running. So it looks like all of the containers are up and running. If we go over to Pod Manager, we can see that with the configuration that we generated, the 3 containers that we want to see are indeed present. We've got the one where the proxy is running inside the container. You've got the one where the proxy is running on the side of the host. And you've also got the one running where we don't use any proxy at all and we go straight into the container. So what we're going to do now is we're going to open up Claude Desktop and we're going to see if we can actually hook in to all 3 of these running Clojure MCP servers. When we open up that plus, you can see that the proxy running inside the container connects very quickly. The other 2, because they require more effort on the side of Claude Desktop to get hooked up, they're going to take a little bit more time, but let's see if they get hooked up as well. Great, so after about 20 seconds, all 3 of these proxies are now available. When we go to the search and tools, we have the opportunity to activate or deactivate any one of the proxies that we want to. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to check to see if the MCP container proxy is working. This one is going to be inside of patterns container proxy inside of here. We are running this container, and this container is going to be encapsulating everything that is inside of container proxy. So it should be working on this mcp.clojure file. So you can go into this Clojure file, you can go to Claude, and you can say, hello Claude, could you please change the +3 function to be +2 and to update all references to this function in the main. Ensure to test your change in the REPL first before editing the mcp.clojure file. And so now Claude is going to chew on this request for a bit, is going to ask me for permissions to be able to do the things that it wants to do. You can see it's already making calls to the Clojure MCP server. And after it's read the files and found the mcp.clojure file, it's going to start evaluating and changing the code. So you can already see that Claude has now edited this file and replaced the +3 function with +2. And has indeed changed inside the main the +3 calls to +2. So just a little toy example, but you can see from the conversation that Claude is using the Clojure MCP server to evaluate inside the REPL the behavior of the function that he wants to write. And after ensuring that the function that he wants to write is indeed working correctly, he then goes and changes the file itself inside of encapsulated container, where this instance of Claude Desktop has no concept of the source code outside of these mounted files. I see some really interesting possibilities for creating different mounting points or different scopes for your agent running inside of Claude Desktop. Let's go ahead and change the one that's directly in the source. So here we're doing the same exact thing. We've got a container running. This container is going to be mounting the contents of this directory, including the mcp.clojure. So when we go over to Claude Desktop and we say, hey, Claude Desktop, instead of using the MCP container proxy, let's use the direct one. We are going to change the scope of what Claude Desktop is going to be able to only see what's inside of the direct directory. And here we're going to do the same exact thing. Normally what you'd want to do is you'd want to go and open up a new chat. And with that new chat, Claude is not going to think that he's already made this change. And again, Claude makes the change, changes it from +3 to +2. Inside the main, changes it from +3 to +2. But we can also get Claude up and running inside of a virtual machine. Once the Clojure dev box is up and running, we are going to SSH into it and run a couple of scripts. And I'm just going to go straight into a Clojure project that I have set up inside this VM. Okay, I'm into the repository, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to be running this entry-point.shell. What it's going to do is it's going to start the nREPL server, and then it's going to start up the MCP proxy and the Clojure MCP with command-X. Great, we can see that the nREPL is up and running. If you come to nREPL out, you see that the nREPL has started on 7888, and here in MCP SSE out, you can see that there's some communication happening there as well. So now that we have done that, we're going to go back to this repo here. We need to update our Clojure Desktop config to have the command which is going to connect to this VM. In order to do that, we are going to run Claude win, and then I have another command line executable call called Claude win VM, which is going to add this to our Claude Desktop config.json file. All right, we generated that file. Now what we're going to do is we are going to go back to Claude here, and inside of Claude, we are going to refresh the view. And with this view, we should now be able to also add in the connection to our VM. Great, so after a bit, the VM proxy is now available. We can go over here and we can enable that. And now we are going to be able to, from here, have Claude Desktop speak to the VM, and we should be able to make changes inside of the virtual machine. So let's go ahead and do the same exact thing that we were doing before. It's going to be examining the project here. It's going to be reading the file at source mcp.clojure, and it's going to make the change that we want, hopefully. Fantastic. So Claude Desktop was now able to go into the running virtual machine, which we have SSH'd into. It's able to see the project and make changes while using the Clojure REPL from inside the VM. So now we've seen it running from 3 different containers connected to Clojure MCP in 3 different ways. We've seen it connect to a VM, but maybe we're not interested in Claude Desktop. Maybe we're interested in a different tool. Maybe we want to use Claude Code, or we want to use Codex CLI or Codex inside of VS Code, or maybe we just want to use Copilot Chat. Let's take a look at those ways of connecting up. In order to get the configuration for our tools here, let's take a look inside of dev-env-nix to see what we need to generate. In order to get Copilot running, we're going to run Copilot, and in order to get Codex running, we're going to run Codex conf. We'll write Copilot, write Codex conf. Now both of these tools should also be set up to be able to connect. As you can see for Claude Code, for example, there's nothing there, and for the Codex CLI, I believe there's also no changes. The reason why is because those can be found inside the repo itself. So Claude Code is going to be using the Clojure MCP container proxy, connecting up in this way and looking at 7080 SSE. So that's going to be hooking up to this running container here. We have the Codex CLI, which is using a config toml, which is also going to be looking at the same port in the same mounted files in the same container. Let's go into each of these tools and see how they work. First things first, we're going to go into our dev-env shell again. Once we're in the shell, we're going to run first. Let's check out Claude Code. Great, and here we are going to be asking it to change the +2 function to +3 and to update all references of this function in the main. And as it's going through, you can see that it's working from inside the container, inside user app source MCP Clojure. It's making the checks inside the REPL as you would hope and want. And it decided to go with +4 instead of +3. I asked it to be +3 and to change it to +3. It said that's crazy and went to +4. I guess that's my fault. So that's Claude Code. Let's move over to Codex. So we'll go into our dev.env again, and from here we're going to write Codex. So we will sign in with ChatGPT. Great, we're now signed into ChatGPT. We can start using Codex CLI, and we can go and see that we are connected up to the Clojure MCP container proxy, just like Claude Code is, and we can go ahead and give Codex the following command. But what's kind of cool is that you can have Codex working at the same time as Claude, so we can ask Claude from in the same file to actually change something else perhaps. So instead of asking it to change the +4, we can say, please update the greet to say hello in all caps, and then here. Yeah, so you can see Claude already made his change, and Codex CLI is still doing some crunching. Great, so Codex CLI did it too. So we've got Claude Desktop looking at a file while we have Claude Code looking at a file while we have Codex CLI looking at a file, all at the same exact time. Let's add one more to the mix with Codex here inside of VS Code. Let's have Codex update this file. This time we're going to ask it to write hello in not all caps. And indeed, Codex has changed the hello to hello. So for the last client that we're going to try with Copilot Chat. What Copilot is going to do is it's going to generate this mcp.json file. And from inside this mcp JSON file, we can go ahead and hit start right here, which is going to try to connect us up to the running Clojure MCP. Once we're running with Copilot Chat, now we can go ahead and open up the chat client. You can check in here and see that indeed we are connected up to the Clojure MCP container proxy, which is again looking at the container running inside of container proxy here. So we will be looking at this mcp.clojure file, and now we can ask Copilot to go ahead and make a change here. I'm just going to ask it to do something silly, and we're going to see if we get a result. And so there goes Copilot Chat. It's going to be using the proxy and indeed is going to start making changes. Now the downside of Copilot Chat is it knows the workspace that it's in, and so it thinks it's in the path that is on the side of your host, but it is indeed running inside of the container, so the paths look different, and this will degrade the effectiveness of the tool. And indeed, Copilot Chat was also able to make the changes necessary with a little bit of cajoling. Perhaps the idea in the future would be to ensure that when you're mounting the project that is mounted inside the container has the same structure as your actual setup. So there you have it. We have shown that from this one repository, we can connect to our MCP server using a host of different clients. We connected with Claude Desktop, Claude Code, Codex CLI, Codex from inside VS Code, Copilot Chat. And for each of these cases, we use their own config file for connecting to the MCP servers. All of these examples are inside of this repo. So your favorite tool that you would want to use with the favorite connection type you would want to use, you can go in here, check it out, and use it as inspiration to get Clojure MCP integrated up into your project with as little friction as possible. I hope you enjoyed that. Thank you very much for taking the time. If you have any questions or comments, please leave one below. Otherwise, I'll see you next time. Thank you very much and have a good night. Bye.